It was early morning when the phone rang. I had just woken up, the house still quiet and undisturbed, the first light of the day peeking through the blinds. I always loved these moments, the silence before the world awoke. It was my time, a brief reprieve before the chaos of life took over. I had no idea that this quiet morning would soon shatter into a whirlwind of emotions I wasn't prepared to face. I had just poured myself a cup of coffee when my phone rang. Breaking the stillness, the number wasn't one I recognized, but there was something about it, a strange sense of unease that made my heart skip a beat. I glanced at the screen. It was Rachel's number. My daughter-in-law Rachel, I answered, my voice still thick with sleep. Is everything okay? Her voice came through the lines soft, shaky, and much more fragile than I was used to hearing. Rachel was the type of person who held things together. She was calm, collected, always in control. So when I heard that tremor in her voice, I felt an immediate knot in my stomach. Mom, we need to talk, she said, her tone tight, as though she was struggling to find the right words. I frowned, a sense of dread creeping into me. Rachel, what's wrong? She took a deep breath. I don't know how to say this. She paused, and I could hear the shaking of her breath through the phone. Tom has been seeing someone else. The words took a moment to sink in. Tom, my son, my only child, the man I had watched grow up, the boy I had raised, the man I trusted with my whole heart. My chest tightened painfully, and for a moment, I thought I might choke on my breath. Rachel, are you sure? I asked, though the words felt hollow even as I said them. I didn't want to believe it. Tom couldn't have done this. He was the one who had always been so faithful, so responsible. He was the good one, the son I had always been proud of. I'm sure, Mom, Rachel replied quietly. I found the messages and the pictures. I don't know how long it's been going on, but I saw enough to know. I just didn't know what to do. I thought you should know. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, the pressure rising in my head. I didn't know what to say. The idea of Tom, my Tom, betraying Rachel like that felt like a sick joke, a bad dream I couldn't wake up from. He wasn't perfect, but he was loyal, devoted, or so I had believed. This news was impossible to process. Rachel, are you sure it's not a misunderstanding? Maybe you didn't see everything. I hated myself for asking. I didn't want to doubt Rachel, but I didn't want to believe it either. I wish it were a misunderstanding, Rachel said, her voice breaking. But I saw everything. I've tried to talk to him about it, but he keeps denying it, keeps shutting me out. I don't know what to do anymore, Mom. I'm so lost. I thought I should tell you because you're his mother, and I don't know how to handle this on my own. Her words stung, and I felt a deep pang of sympathy for her. What she was going through, what she had discovered, was unimaginable. How could Tom have done this to her? And how had I not known? How had I missed the signs? I'll come over, I said, trying to keep my voice steady, though inside, I was a storm of confusion and disbelief. We'll figure this out together, okay? I heard her sigh with relief on the other end of the line. Thank you, Mom, she whispered. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I just needed you to know. The conversation ended, and I sat there, staring at the phone in my hand, unable to move. My mind was racing. How could this be true? Tom had always been a good husband to Rachel, or at least, I thought he had. Was I that blind? Had I missed something? And what did this mean for their marriage? For our family? I shook my head, trying to clear the fog that clouded my thoughts. But there was no denying it. The truth had been laid out before me. As ugly and painful as it was, my son had betrayed his wife. He had cheated. I stood up slowly, my legs weak beneath me. I had to go to Rachel. I had to be there for her, as much as I needed answers myself. Tom needed to face this. He couldn't get away with it, not without an explanation. I grabbed my coat, my hands shaking as I put it on. I couldn't understand why this was happening. I had raised Tom with the best intentions. I had always taught him to be honest, to be loyal, to never hurt those who loved him. And yet here I was, about to confront him about the one thing I never thought I'd have to face. The drive to Rachel's house felt like a blur. Every mile seemed to stretch on for miles, my mind consumed with questions I didn't have answers to. What would I say to Tom? Would he deny it? Would he try to spin some excuse, some justification? And if he did, would I believe him? By the time I reached Rachel's house, the reality of the situation had begun to settle in. I had no idea what I was walking into, but I knew it would change everything. I parked in front of Rachel's house and sat there for a moment, gathering my thoughts. The sun was higher now, the day fully awake, but I felt like I was living in a dream, a nightmare really. I got out of the car and made my way to the front door. As I approached, I could see Rachel through the window. She was standing there, looking out, but she didn't see me. I knocked softly, trying to steady my breath, when she opened the door. She looked different, drained, fragile, like she hadn't slept in days. Her eyes were red from crying, but there was something else there too, a quiet strength that I hadn't expected. "Come in," she said softly, stepping aside. I walked in, my heart heavy with the weight of what I had to do. We sat down on the couch. The silence between us thick and uncomfortable. I could feel the tension in the air, the unspoken words that hovered over us. Rachel looked at me, her face etched with pain. "I don't know what to do, Mom," she said finally, her voice quiet but clear. "I don't want to leave him, but I can't live like this. I don't even know who he is anymore." I didn't know what to say. How could I comfort her when I was just as lost as she was? But one thing was certain. I wasn't going to let this go. Tom needed to face the consequences of his actions, and I was going to make sure of it. Rachel sat beside me on the couch, her hands clenched tightly in her lap. She was silent, staring at the floor, lost in her thoughts. I could see the hurt in her eyes, but there was something else, too, a flicker of anger. It was the kind of anger I knew all too well, the quiet, seething kind that brewed when someone you loved had lied to you. I sat beside her, unsure of what to say next. I felt completely out of my depth. This wasn't how things were supposed to be. I had raised Tom with love, with care, with all the values I thought were important: honesty, respect, loyalty. And now, I had to face the ugly truth that my son had betrayed all of those things. Rachel wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, clearing away a few stray tears. She looked up at me then, her eyes still red. "What am I supposed to do, Mom?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "How can I forgive him for this? How do I go back to the way things were?" I didn't have an answer for her. How could I? How could anyone just pick up the pieces after something like this? I could feel my own chest tightening, my heart breaking for her. I wanted to say something that would make it all better, something that would take away the pain, but there were no words. There was no simple fix for this. "I don't know, honey," I said softly, my voice thick with emotion. "But you're not alone in this. You don't have to go through it by yourself." Her lip trembled, and she nodded, but I could tell she wasn't convinced. I couldn't blame her. What could I offer her when the person who was supposed to protect her, her husband, my son, had destroyed everything? I stood up, pacing the room, feeling the weight of the situation pressing in on me. It felt like there was no way out of this, no way to turn back the clock. The more I thought about it, the angrier I became. I wasn't just angry with Tom, I was angry at myself. How had I failed to see the cracks in my own son? How had I allowed him to hide this from everyone, especially from Rachel? The silence stretched on, and finally, I turned to Rachel. "I'm going to talk to him," I said, more to myself than to her. She looked up at me, her face a mixture of confusion and desperation. "What are you going to say?" "I don't know yet," I admitted, running a hand through my hair. "But I can't sit here and let this go on. He needs to know that this isn't just about him anymore. This affects all of us, our family, his marriage, his future." Rachel's gaze hardened. "You think he'll listen?" I paused, not sure of the answer myself. "I don't know, but he's going to have to listen to someone." The thought of confronting Tom, my own flesh and blood, sent a shiver down my spine, but I knew it had to be done. This wasn't just about Rachel's pain. This was about all of us, about holding Tom accountable for his actions. I had always prided myself on raising a good man, a man who would never hurt the people he loved. But somewhere along the way, I had missed something, and now I had to face the consequences of that blind trust. As I gathered my things to leave, I could see that Rachel was still struggling. I didn't know what else to say, so I simply walked over to her and hugged her. It was the only thing I could do, just hold her, and let her know she wasn't alone in this. "I'll be back soon," I told her quietly. "I'm going to talk to him." She nodded, but I could see the doubt in her eyes. She wasn't sure how things were going to turn out, and honestly, neither was I. The drive to Tom's house felt even longer than it had earlier. My mind was consumed with questions, with fears, with the painful reality of what was happening. How had we come to this point? How had everything gotten so out of control? When I finally pulled up in front of Tom's house, my heart was pounding in my chest. I sat there for a moment, staring at the front door, the weight of what I was about to do sinking in. I wasn't just confronting Tom about an affair, I was confronting everything I thought I knew about him, about our family. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. and then I got out of the car. As I walked up to the front door, I noticed how quiet everything seemed. The world around me felt distant, almost surreal. It was like I was walking through a fog, unsure of where I was going or what I was doing. I knocked softly on the door, my heart in my throat. A few seconds later, Tom opened it. He looked surprised to see me, but there was no warmth in his eyes. He stepped back to let me in, but I didn't move. "Mom, what's going on?" he asked, his voice casual, like he hadn't just shattered his wife's heart. I didn't answer him right away. I just stood there, looking at him. He was still my son. He would always be my son, but in that moment, I didn't recognize him. The man standing before me wasn't the boy I had raised. "Tom," I said, my voice sharp, though I tried to keep it steady. "We need to talk." He looked at me, his brow furrowing. "What about?" "You know what about," I replied, my voice growing firmer. "Don't play dumb with me, Tom. This is about Rachel, about what you've done." His face faltered for a moment, and I saw a flash of guilt, or was it fear, in his eyes, but just as quickly, he masked it, his expression hardening. "Mom, I don't know what Rachel's told you, but it's not what you think," he said, his voice defensive. "I'm sure it's not," I said bitterly. "But you're going to tell me, Tom. You're going to tell me the truth. I'm not leaving here until I know what's really going on." Tom ran a hand through his hair, his eyes darting around the room like he was searching for an escape. "I don't know what you want me to say, Mom. It's just complicated," I repeated, my voice rising. "No, Tom, it's not complicated. You've betrayed your wife. You've lied to her, to your family, and now you're going to fix it." He opened his mouth, but the words didn't come. For a moment, we just stood there, staring at each other. Finally, he sighed, his shoulders slumping. "I didn't mean for it to go this far. I never wanted to hurt anyone, but it just happened." I shook my head, my heart sinking even further. "Don't you dare give me that, Tom. You made choices. You made a decision to cheat. You made a decision to destroy your marriage, and now you're going to face it." Tom looked like he was going to argue, but something in my tone must have stopped him. He closed his eyes for a moment, rubbing his forehead, then he finally met my gaze. "Okay," he said quietly. "Okay, I'll tell you everything, but I'm not sure you're going to like it." I could feel the tension in the room as Tom finally stepped back, inviting me in fully. His eyes were on the floor, and for the first time, I saw him as a man who was cornered, unsure of how to make things right. It wasn't the son I had raised. It was someone I didn't quite recognize, someone who seemed to be grasping at straws in the face of his actions. "I never meant to hurt Rachel," Tom started, his voice low and apologetic, though it sounded more like an excuse than a genuine explanation. "It just happened. It's complicated, okay? It's not black and white like you think it is." I crossed my arms, unwilling to let him hide behind vague words. "Don't give me that, Tom. This is not complicated. You've been cheating. You've broken your vows. You've broken your wife's heart. That's not complicated. That's just betrayal." He flinched at my words, as if the truth hurt more than anything I could have thrown at him, but I didn't care. It was time for him to face the reality of what he had done, to stop pretending it was anything other than a selfish, thoughtless choice. Tom took a deep breath and dropped his gaze to the floor, his hands fidgeting with the edge of his shirt. "It was someone from work," he began, his voice strained. We started talking. You know, at first, it was just harmless late-night texts, casual conversations, but then it became more, and I kept telling myself I wasn't doing anything wrong, that Rachel would never find out. I was just escaping from the pressure of being a husband, a father. I felt like I was losing myself in all of it, and I didn't know how to fix it, so I kept going. I wanted to scream at him, but I held it in. I couldn't. This wasn't about yelling at him, this was about understanding the truth, about finally getting some answers. And even though his words made me sick to my stomach, I had to hear it all. I shook my head slowly, disbelieving. "You think that's an excuse? You think that's justifiable? You hurt your wife, Tom. You hurt Rachel, your family. You think texting some woman from work makes it okay? You think ignoring your responsibilities and lying to the woman you promised to love was just some temporary escape?" "I didn't think it would go this far," he said again, his voice weak now, as though the weight of the words he'd said was finally sinking in. "I didn't think I was going to fall for her, but I did. I don't know how. She just made me feel heard, you know. I don't know how it happened, but it did. I'm sorry, Mom. I don't know what to say anymore." I felt my blood boil. "You're sorry, that's it. After everything, That's all you can give me. You think sorry is going to fix the damage you've done. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to calm down. Rachel doesn't deserve this. Tom, you should have come to her. You should have talked to her. Instead, you went behind her back and lied to her face. And now look at the mess we're in. This isn't just about the affair. This is about the lies, the disrespect. You need to take responsibility for that. He looked at me then, his eyes hollow. I know, I've screwed up, but I don't know how to fix it. I don't know if Rachel can forgive me. Hell, I don't even know if I can forgive myself. His words hung in the air, the silence between us heavy and thick. I knew what he was going to say next, and part of me dreaded it, but another part of me that had been so angry and heartbroken over the betrayal, wanted him to face the full consequences of his actions. And what about the other woman? I asked, my voice quieter now, but no less intense. What's her role in all of this? Did you just think it was all going to stay a secret? Tom swallowed hard, his jaw tightening. He shifted on his feet, as if he were trying to avoid my gaze. Her name is Emily, he muttered, barely above a whisper. We've been seeing each other for almost 6 months. It started as just text messages, then lunches here and there, but we started meeting outside of work, and it got worse. It got more complicated. She wanted more. She kept pushing me, telling me to leave Rachel, telling me I deserved to be happy. I didn't know what to do. Of course she did, I snapped. She saw an opportunity to steal your attention, and you let her. What did you think was going to happen? Did you think Rachel would just be okay with you stepping out on her, that no one would get hurt? I paused, breathing in deeply to regain some composure. And now you've put yourself in a position where you've not only broken your marriage, but you've broken your family. You've put everyone in a position where we can't trust you anymore. Tom, not Rachel, not me, not anyone. Tom's face crumpled, his shoulders shaking slightly. I never meant for it to go this far. I don't know how to fix it, but I want to try. I don't want to lose Rachel. I don't want to lose my family. I couldn't help it. My anger was slowly being replaced by a strange sense of sadness. Here he was, my son, pleading for forgiveness. But the damage was done. There was no simple way to undo the mess he'd made, and no amount of regret could make it go away. Rachel deserves better than you, Tom, I said, my voice softer now. She deserves a partner who won't lie to her, who won't betray her trust. I don't know if you can fix this, but you need to start by telling her the truth, not the half-truths, not the excuses. You need to be completely honest with her. Tom nodded, but there was a hollow look in his eyes. I will, I promise. I'll do whatever it takes. I'll tell her everything. He seemed to shrink into himself, his guilt suffocating him. Good, I said, though the words felt too simple for what we were facing, because if you want any chance at saving your marriage, you're going to have to face this head, and I'll be watching. You're my son, Tom. I want to believe in you, but right now, I don't know who you are. I need you to prove to me and to Rachel that you're worth saving. I turned and walked to the door, my heart heavy with the weight of what had just been said. Tom's voice stopped me before I could leave. Mom, what if she doesn't forgive me? I paused at the door, glancing back at him. Then you'll have to live with the consequences of your actions. Tom, you can't force her to forgive you, but you can at least show her that you're truly sorry. That's the first step. The door closed behind me with a quiet click, and I stood there for a moment, the cold air biting at my skin. I couldn't help but wonder if this would be enough, if Tom would truly change, or if he was just trying to save face. It was late that evening when I finally made the drive back to Rachel's house. My mind was still reeling from everything I had learned from Tom, and I felt like I was walking through a fog. I didn't know how to reconcile the man I thought I knew with the one I had just spoken to. He had seemed so remorseful, but I didn't know if that was enough. Rachel had asked me to come back after I spoke to Tom, and I knew I had to tell her the truth, every excruciating detail. But how could I do that? How could I tear apart the fragile world she was clinging to? When I arrived at Rachel's house, the front lights were on, but there was a heaviness in the air, as if she too was waiting for something, waiting for me. I walked up the steps, slowly, the weight of the situation pressing on my chest with every step. I knocked softly on the door, and after a moment, Rachel opened it. Her eyes immediately searched mine, searching for some kind of answer, some sort of hope, but all I could offer her was a heavy sigh and a nod. I was just as lost as she was. Come in, Rachel said quietly, stepping aside. She was wearing the same tired look I had seen earlier, her face pale, her eyes puffy from the tears she had shed in the last 24 hours. We both sat down on the couch, the silence between us heavy and thick, filled with unspoken words. Finally, Rachel spoke. "Did you talk to him? What did he say?" Her voice trembled, as though she was bracing herself for the worst. I took a deep breath. I wasn't sure how to start, or if I was even ready to say it out loud, but I couldn't delay it any longer. "Yes, I talked to him," I said slowly, feeling the weight of every word. "He admitted it, Rachel. He's been seeing someone else. For months." Her face fell, the color draining from her cheeks, as if I had just delivered a physical blow. She looked away from me, staring blankly ahead, as though she were trying to process what I had said. "I'm so sorry," I whispered. "I didn't want you to find out like this, but he needed to face it. He needed to tell you the truth." Rachel's hands trembled as she gripped the edge of the couch. I could see the anger building in her eyes, but it wasn't directed at me. It was directed at Tom, and rightfully so. "I can't believe this," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "How could he do this to me, after everything we've been through, everything we've built?" I swallowed hard, feeling the sting of her pain. "I know, honey, I know. But he's going to make it right. He's promised me that he'll tell you everything." Rachel shook her head slowly. "He promised you, and you believe him?" She sounded so incredulous, so broken, and I couldn't blame her. How could I believe him? How could I tell her to believe him? "I don't know," I admitted. "I don't know if I believe him, Rachel, but he's going to try. He said he would. I think he's scared, but I'm not going to sugarcoat it. He betrayed you, and he has a lot of work to do if he's going to win your trust back." Rachel sat back, her hands now folded tightly in her lap. She looked at me, her eyes wet with tears. "Do you think he's capable of fixing this?" I took a long pause, searching for the right words. "I hope so, but that's something only he can show you. He has to prove to you that he's worth it." Her voice wavered as she looked away. "But will I ever be able to forgive him? Will I ever look at him the same way again? I don't know how to move forward from this." The question hung in the air, and I knew there was no easy answer. I wished I could offer her a simple solution, but there wasn't one. "What happens now?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I looked at her, the weight of everything I had just learned about Tom pressing on me. I couldn't give her the answers she wanted, but I could give her the truth. "Now," I said quietly, "you take it one step at a time. You don't have to forgive him right now. You don't have to make any decisions, but you have to know the truth. And you have to know that you deserve better than this. You deserve someone who will never lie to you, who will never hurt you." She nodded slowly, as if she were trying to absorb everything I had just said. "I don't know if I can stay with him," she whispered, tears welling up again. "I don't know if I can live with the thought that he's been lying to me all this time." I reached over and took her hand in mine, squeezing it tightly. "I know it's hard, Rachel, but whatever you decide, I'm here for you, and I'll help you through it." There was a long silence, and for a moment, it felt like the world had stopped spinning. I could see the pain in Rachel's eyes, the uncertainty about what would happen next, and as much as I wanted to reassure her that everything would be okay, I knew that was a lie. "Can I ask you something?" Rachel said after a while, her voice trembling. "Of course," I replied. "Anything. Do you think he still loves me?" she asked, her voice so small that it almost broke me to hear it. I hesitated. It was a question I hadn't asked myself, but one that seemed to hang over everything. Did Tom still love her? Or was this just a mistake, a temporary escape from whatever had been wrong in their marriage? "I don't know, honey," I said softly. "I really don't know. But what I do know is that love is not supposed to look like this. Love is not supposed to be betrayed like this. And if he does love you, he's going to have to prove it. And that starts with the truth." Rachel nodded slowly, her face set with a new determination. She wasn't sure where this path would lead, but I could see that she was at least willing to walk it. She wasn't giving up on herself, and I wasn't going to give up on her either. The doorbell rang just then, and Rachel glanced at me, her expression unreadable. "It's him," she said, her voice barely audible. "He's here." I felt a sudden rush of nerves, but I knew this was the moment when everything would change. "Are you ready?" I asked, my voice steady. Rachel took a deep breath, then stood up slowly, her eyes meeting mine. "I guess I have to be." The door creaked open, and I felt a cold wave of tension sweep through the room. Rachel stood up slowly, her posture stiff and guarded. I could see the fight in her, the desire to hold on to what she had, to not let everything she had built crumble in a single moment. But the pain in her eyes, the hurt that was now unmistakable, told me everything. She had already begun to let go. Tom stood in the doorway, his hands shoved into his pockets. He looked disheveled, his usual neat appearance, now a reflection of the turmoil he was going through. But none of that mattered. Not now. Not in this moment. I could see that Rachel was taking in every detail, every shift in Tom's posture. She was analyzing everything, and rightly so. She had the right to see him for what he truly was, now the man who had torn her world apart. Rachel, Tom said softly, stepping inside, his voice hoarse. He tried to sound gentle, but there was something about it that felt rehearsed, like he was practicing the right tone for the occasion. But this wasn't something that could be fixed with a few kind words. Rachel didn't move. She didn't even acknowledge him at first. I could see her clenched fists by her sides, her whole body tense, as if she was bracing herself for the storm. "I'm sorry," Tom continued, his eyes searching hers, desperate for some kind of understanding. "I didn't mean for it to happen like this. I just know," Rachel interrupted, her voice low but filled with sharpness. "You didn't mean for it to happen like this." She scoffed, the words tasting bitter in her mouth. "You didn't mean to betray me. You didn't mean to destroy everything we had. You didn't mean to ruin our marriage." The anger in her voice was a jagged edge, but it was also the only thing keeping her grounded. I could see the tears welling up in her eyes, but she held them back. For now, Tom's face fell, and I could see the guilt washing over him, but it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough to erase what he had done, what he had hidden from her, what he had broken. "Rachel, please," he said, stepping closer. "I know I messed up, but I love you. I swear. I love you. I don't want to lose you." At this, Rachel looked at him, her eyes filled with a mixture of disbelief and pain. "You think I can believe that? You think I can just forget everything that's happened? You think I can pretend that I don't know what you've done?" Tom started, but Rachel shook her head, cutting him off. "You don't get it, do you?" she said, her voice trembling but firm. "You don't get that love doesn't work like this. You don't get that love isn't about breaking promises and lying. You don't get that love doesn't hurt like this. I don't know who you are anymore." The words landed like punches. Each sentence cut deeper into the fragile armor he had left. He flinched, but instead of retreating, he pushed forward, his voice breaking. "I'm sorry, Rachel," he said again. "I'm so sorry. I don't know how to fix this, but I'll do anything to make it right." Rachel stood there for a moment, her eyes locked on his, searching for some sign that he wasn't just giving her empty words, but she didn't find it. The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, she turned away from him. Her whole body seemed to collapse in on itself. She was no longer angry. She wasn't fighting him. She was broken, and I couldn't stand to watch it. "Anything," Rachel whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "You'll do anything to fix this. Then why didn't you do anything before it went this far? Why didn't you care enough to tell me the truth, to stop before it got to this point?" Her words hit him harder than anything else had. I watched his face flush with shame, his posture shrinking. He wanted to answer, to say something that could make it right, but he had no words left. How could he? "Don't, Tom," Rachel continued, her voice barely audible now. "Don't stand here and tell me you'll change, that you'll fix everything. You can't change what you've already done. You can't take back the lies. You can't undo the betrayal." Tom opened his mouth, but he didn't know how to respond. There was no defense, no excuse, and Rachel knew it. She wasn't looking for apologies anymore. She was looking for something that didn't exist anymore. "I'm done," she said finally, her voice shaking as she spoke the words that sealed it. "I'm done with this, with you." It was like a wall had come crashing down between them. Tom stood there, his hands shaking as he reached for her, but Rachel stepped back, away from him. The space between them seemed insurmountable. "Please, Rachel," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "Please don't do this." But she was already walking away, towards the door. The sound of her footsteps echoed in the stillness of the room. I could see the tears starting to fall from her eyes, but she didn't turn back. She kept walking, her back straight, her face hardening with each step. I felt like I was watching a fracture split wide open. The woman I had raised was strong, determined, and as much as it broke my heart to see her in pain, I knew this was the moment she had to make. She had to let go. She had to walk away, no matter how hard it was. Tom's face twisted in agony as he watched her go, and I could see the truth in his eyes now. He had nothing left. No words could fix what he had done. No apology would ever be enough. I stepped forward, placing a hand on his shoulder as he stood there, staring after Rachel. His whole body was trembling, and I knew the shame was eating him alive, but there was no saving him from it. He had made his choices, and now he had to live with them. "I'm sorry, Mom," he whispered, his voice breaking. I didn't mean for it to end like this. I never wanted to hurt her. I looked at him, but I didn't know what to say. There were no words that could make this right. And as much as it pained me, as much as I still wanted to believe in him, I knew I had to let him face this on his own. I know, Tom, I said softly, my voice steady. I know you didn't want this, but you did it, and now you have to own up to it. I turned away, walking out of the room, leaving him to his thoughts, his regret, his guilt. There was nothing left to say. The days after that confrontation blurred together in a haze of phone calls, silence, and fleeting moments of clarity. Tom had left Rachel's house shortly after I did, stumbling through his words, struggling to piece together the fragments of the life he had ruined. The air between us, between everyone, was thick with unspoken things. I could feel the tension lingering like smoke after a fire, suffocating and impossible to ignore. Rachel had retreated to her room, her eyes swollen from crying, her face pale and drawn. I knew she wasn't okay, but what could I do? There were no magic words that would undo the devastation Tom had caused, no soothing balm to patch up the gaping wound in her heart. What happened next was as inevitable as it was painful. Rachel started making decisions, quietly, with a resolve that came from somewhere deep within her. She began to take control of what had been taken from her. I couldn't help but admire her strength, even as it made my heart ache. I visited her the next morning, hoping to offer whatever comfort I could. She was sitting at the kitchen table, her back straight, the papers in front of her like a small fortress she had built around herself. "Hey," I said softly, stepping into the room. "How are you?" She didn't look up at first. She was tracing her fingers across the stack of documents in front of her, lost in thought, but then, slowly, she raised her eyes to meet mine. There was something different about her now, a quiet determination that I hadn't seen before. "I'm doing okay," she said. Her voice was steady, even though her eyes betrayed the exhaustion she was carrying. "I'm going to file for divorce, Mom." The words hit me like a punch to the stomach. I knew it was coming. I had known that this moment would arrive sooner or later, but hearing it out loud was something else entirely. "Rachel, I began, but I didn't know how to finish. What could I say? Could I advise her not to? Could I tell her to wait, to give Tom a second chance? It felt wrong, but in my heart, I knew she wasn't making this decision lightly. She had been through too much. "I know, it's fast," she continued, her gaze unwavering, "but I can't keep living like this. I can't keep wondering if I'm enough for him, if I'm ever going to be enough. I gave him everything, and he betrayed me. I'm done waiting for him to change." I nodded, understanding more than I wanted to. I could see the pain in her eyes, but I could also see the power in her words. She was reclaiming her agency, her life, and that was something no one could take from her. "Do you want me to help?" I asked, knowing the answer before I even finished the question. Rachel gave me a small smile. A smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, but it was a smile nonetheless. "I'm good, Mom. I've got this." And in that moment, I realized something. She didn't just have this. She was this. She was strength, resilience, and an unwavering belief in her own worth. And she was going to be okay, no matter what. As I left her house that morning, I felt a strange sense of peace. Rachel had taken the first step toward healing, toward standing up for herself. But I also knew that Tom's journey was far from over, and his actions, his consequences were just beginning to unfold. I didn't expect to hear from Tom again so soon. The weeks after Rachel's decision were a whirlwind of legal paperwork and emotional weight. And for a time, it felt like the world had stopped spinning. But life, as it always does, continued. It was a few days later when I received the call. Tom had reached out, and even though I didn't know if I was ready to speak to him again, I answered. "I had to, Mom. I need to talk to you," he said, his voice thick with guilt and something else, something I hadn't heard from him in a long time. Sincerity. "Tom, I'm not sure what there is left to say," I replied, my voice cautious. I was still reeling from the last time we spoke. How could he expect me to just sit down and have a civil conversation with him when everything had been torn apart? I know, he said quickly. "But I need you to understand. I've been to therapy. I've started making real changes. I know I've messed everything up, and I'm not asking for forgiveness, not yet. But I want you to know that I'm trying. I'm doing the work. And if there's any chance to make things right with Rachel, I want to do that." His words hit me in a way I wasn't prepared for. It wasn't the apology itself, it was the fact that he had finally recognized the depth of the harm he had caused. For so long, he had been selfish, acting without regard for anyone else. But now, he seemed different. vulnerable? I don't know. Tom, I said softly, my heart heavy. You have to show her. You have to prove it to her. You can't just say the words. Words don't fix things. Actions do, I know. He said quietly, I know. I'm going to do whatever it takes. I didn't know if I believed him, but something in his voice made me think he might be sincere this time. It didn't change the past, but maybe it could change the future. For his sake, I hoped it would. The days that followed were a blur. Tom continued his therapy, and Rachel's divorce proceedings began to move forward. It was a slow process, but there was no turning back. Rachel was focused now, stronger than ever. She had a plan, a future, and she wasn't about to let anyone, least of all Tom, get in the way of it. But as Tom worked to rebuild his own life, I could see him struggling with the weight of what he had done. The guilt was consuming him, and for the first time, I saw a glimmer of the man he used to be, the man I had raised. But was it enough? Was it enough for Rachel? Was it enough for their marriage? Rachel had made her decision, and I respected it. But Tom still had a long road ahead. He had hurt too many people, and no amount of regret could take that away. The day of the final confrontation had arrived, though I didn't know if either of them was truly ready for it. For weeks, Rachel had been preparing herself, going through the motions of a divorce, of reclaiming her independence. Tom, meanwhile, had spent his time in therapy and making empty promises, trying to prove to everyone, especially himself, that he was capable of change. But there was a finality to all of this now. It wasn't about apologies anymore. It wasn't about what Tom wanted or what Rachel hoped for. It was about closure. Rachel had asked me to be there for this last meeting. I didn't know if it was for my support, for the strength that she needed to carry herself through this, or if it was because she wanted someone there to witness the final unraveling of the last thread that connected them. Whatever the reason, I was there. I stood by her side as she walked into the room where Tom had asked to meet, her back straight, her eyes focused. She wasn't the woman I had met a year ago, uncertain, shy, and waiting for things to improve. She was someone else now. She was resolute, a woman who knew what she deserved, and she wasn't afraid to claim it. Tom was already there when we arrived, sitting on the couch, his face pale and drawn. He looked as though he hadn't slept in days, his eyes sunken, his posture slumped. He had spent so much time pretending to be strong, pretending to hold it together. But now, in front of Rachel, the facade had completely cracked. Rachel, he began, standing up as soon as he saw her. He spoke her name like a prayer, but there was no warmth in his voice. There couldn't be. I've been waiting for this.
Rachel didn't respond right away. She simply stepped into the room and stood in front of him. For a long moment, she said nothing. It was as if she were giving him the chance to speak, to dig himself deeper into the hole he had created. But even though the silence stretched, I could see that she wasn't wavering. She wasn't looking for answers anymore. I didn't want to be here, Rachel finally said, her voice quiet but filled with the kind of strength I hadn't heard from her before. But I'm here because I have to be. You're not going to get another chance. You don't deserve it. Her words landed like stones. Tom flinched, his face tightening as he absorbed the force of her declaration. But there was no anger in Rachel's voice, only a deep, quiet certainty. I don't know what you expected from me, Tom, Rachel continued, taking a deep breath. Maybe you thought I'd give you another chance. Maybe you thought I'd believe the words you've been telling me. I love you, I'm sorry. But I'm done with that. I'm done with pretending that this is something I can fix. I'm done with pretending that you're the person I thought you were. Tom's face twisted in pain, but Rachel didn't flinch. She stood tall, her gaze unwavering, and I could see the fire inside her that had been kindling ever since the day she found out about his betrayal. I wanted you to be a good husband, she said, her voice growing steadier. I wanted us to be happy. But what you did wasn't just a mistake. It wasn't just a one-time slip-up. You betrayed me, Tom. You betrayed our marriage. You shattered everything we built. And I can't keep pretending that I can forgive that. Tom opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. He was choking on his own guilt, unable to form a defense that wouldn't ring hollow. I watched as he stood there, searching her face, hoping for some sign that this could all be fixed, that Rachel could somehow, miraculously, change her mind. But it was too late for that. I've already forgiven you, Rachel said, her voice quieter now, though it was no less firm. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean going back to how things were. And it sure as hell doesn't mean we start over like nothing happened. Tom's face crumpled as he stepped toward her, his hands outstretched. "Please, Rachel, don't do this. Please." But Rachel held up her hand, stopping him in his tracks. There was no anger in her movements now, only resolve. "I'm done, Tom," she said. "I'm done letting you hurt me. I'm done waiting for you to change. I'm done being the person who forgives and forgets while you do whatever you want." "I'll change," Tom said desperately. "I'll do anything. Please, just give me a chance. I love you." Rachel shook her head, the smallest, most sorrowful motion. "I don't think you understand, Tom. You're not the one who gets to decide this anymore. You're not the one who gets to choose how this ends." There was a long silence between them, and for the first time, I saw the full weight of what Rachel had been carrying, the weight of every betrayal, every lie, every broken promise that Tom had made. She was finally letting it all go, stepping away from the years she had spent trying to fix something that was never going to be fixed. "You need to let me go," Rachel said, her voice gentle but firm. "You need to let go of me, of this marriage. Because we're over. We're done. And I'm going to move forward with my life." Tom stood there, his hands shaking, his eyes filled with something I couldn't quite place, guilt, desperation, regret, but whatever it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough to fix what he had done. "I can't fix this, Rachel," Tom said, his voice breaking. "I can't undo the hurt I caused. But I swear to you, I'll be better. I'll do whatever it takes to make things right. For myself, for you, for us." Rachel looked at him for a long moment, as though weighing his words, deciding if there was any truth left in them. But I could see the answer in her eyes long before she spoke again. "You can't make this right, Tom," she said softly. "Not anymore. You can't fix what you broke. All you can do now is live with the consequences." Her words cut through the silence like a knife. Tom didn't speak again. He simply nodded slowly, his shoulders slumped in defeat. Rachel walked out of the room without looking back, and I followed her. The door closed behind us with a quiet finality. Tom didn't try to stop her. There was nothing more to say. As Rachel and I walked back to the car, I could see that she had finally, fully, embraced the freedom she had been seeking. The weight of Tom's betrayal had been heavy, but she had released it, piece by piece, over the course of weeks. And now, she was ready to rebuild, not just her marriage, but herself. "I'm proud of you," I said softly, my voice filled with pride. "You did what was right for you." Rachel nodded, her expression resolute. "I don't know what comes next." Rachel nodded, her expression resolute. "I don't know what comes next, but I'm ready for it. I've got to be." The days that followed were filled with change, but change, in this case, was more about taking ownership, both for the past and for the future. Rachel moved forward with the divorce. The legal proceedings took their course, but it was clear to anyone who knew her that she had already done the most important work. She had let go of the pain, the anger, and the memories that kept her tethered to a man who no longer deserved her trust. It wasn't an easy road. There were still difficult moments, and the shadows of betrayal lingered for a time. But slowly, Rachel began to rebuild. She spent more time with her friends, reconnected with family, and even started a new project that had been a dream of hers for years, a nonprofit organization focused on supporting women who had been in toxic relationships, giving them the resources and tools they needed to reclaim their lives. I saw the fire in her again, her passion, her drive, and her ability to turn pain into power. Rachel was no longer a woman defined by her broken marriage. She was a woman who had reclaimed herself. Meanwhile, Tom was left to face the consequences of his actions. I had no idea what the future held for him, but I knew he was on a long, hard road. His attempts to reconcile with Rachel had been met with cold indifference. She had made it clear that there was no second chance for him, not this time. And though he'd sought out therapy and started working on himself, it wasn't enough. His path was one of personal growth, but there would be no easy redemption. Tom began to focus on his own self-improvement, as painful as it was. He acknowledged the depth of his betrayal, but the real work was just beginning. It was going to be a long process, one where he would have to face his own demons, the choices he had made, and the lives he had affected. But the first step toward any kind of redemption was finally coming to terms with his mistakes. And I hoped, for his sake, that he would take that step fully, without the expectation of a quick fix. One afternoon, months after the final confrontation, I received a message from Tom. It was brief, but it was something. "I'm sorry for everything, Mom," he wrote. "I'll keep working on myself. I'll make sure I never make this mistake again." It was the first time he'd taken full responsibility for his actions, and there was something sincere in those words. But sincerity doesn't erase the past. And it certainly doesn't heal the wounds of those you've hurt. It was a step, though. Just one. Rachel's life continued to evolve. She had her moments of doubt, of fear, but they didn't define her anymore. She had learned the hard way that strength doesn't always come from being unshakable, it comes from having the courage to stand back up after you've been knocked down. And she stood taller now. A few years passed, and Rachel's nonprofit flourished. She became a voice for women in situations similar to hers, offering support, guidance, and, most importantly, understanding. I had never been prouder of her. She had turned her pain into purpose, and in doing so, she had found peace. Tom, on the other hand, remained a distant memory for Rachel. She had finally moved on, letting go of the last remnants of their relationship. She met someone new, a man who respected her, who valued her not just for her strength but for her kindness, for her ability to forgive herself. Their relationship was steady, built on trust and mutual respect. I watched Rachel from the sidelines, quietly amazed by the woman she had become. There was no more anger in her eyes when she spoke of Tom. There was no more bitterness, just a quiet sense of having survived and thrived. And as for Tom, well, I didn't hear much about him anymore. He kept to himself, focusing on his own path, trying to make amends where he could. But it was clear that his journey would be long. Redemption wasn't something he could rush. It was something he would have to earn, piece by piece, just like Rachel had earned her peace. It's strange how life can change in an instant. One decision, one betrayal, one lie, it all shifts the trajectory of everything. But there's one thing I know for sure, we all get what we deserve in the end, in one form or another. It might not come in the way we expect, and it might not happen on our timeline. But justice has a way of finding us, of showing us the truth we refuse to see. For Rachel, justice came not in revenge, but in healing. She found the strength to move forward, to rebuild her life piece by piece, and she became the person she had always been meant to be, strong, capable, and unshakable. For Tom, justice was a more painful, solitary process. His actions had consequences that would continue to shape his future. But in his struggle to become a better person, there was a flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, he could find redemption. In the end, Rachel was the one who came out on top. And Tom? Well, he had to live with the choices he made. Sometimes, that's how it works. The people who hurt us can never truly erase their actions, but they can be the ones to change, or to be left behind. Author's note. This story is a reminder that justice doesn't always come in the form of revenge or confrontation. Sometimes, it's the act of healing, of reclaiming your own worth, that brings about the most profound resolution. Rachel's journey was about taking control of her life again, while Tom's journey is one of self-reflection and growth. We all have choices, and sometimes those choices shape the rest of our lives. But even in the face of betrayal, there's always a chance for redemption, whether it's earned or not.